Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Waaaghtaktiks. We're here to talk about the rise of the Green Tide, as the Orks have made a giant splash and a surge in the meta, with Mob and War Horde coming in with some wins. Also, a shout out to Boyz. So we'll be going over some of the performing Ork players from this weekend, go over the WCW Ork performing players, and give a couple of announcements. But of course, let's start with today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice, who allows us to do our paint competition. Check them out in the description for 5% off, because nobody likes taxes. And thank you to Baron of Dice for allowing us to do our paint competition. That way we can give back to the community and get stuck in that. So check out the Baron of Dice as they help us out with what we do. So of course, everybody, let's get back to the tactics. And shout out to everybody. What's up, Jim Jones and Adam? What's up, everybody? Whoa, what's up, Aaron? I see you, buddy. You creep. I read that chat, you little weirdo. All right, everybody. So we have 50 Ork players of last weekend. 7 people going X and 1. X and 1. You know, it's important, baby. That's what people determines what's considered good, right? 2 of those people going undefeated. And then, of course, we have the WCW players here. We're going to be showing and talking about them a little bit. So, but as for War Horde, we have the vast majority with 29 players War Horde, 12 as Mob, like we like to always say. Boyz and Mob like to alternate weekends, right? Both have actually quite some good flavor and fun. There's Boyz a little bit more diverse than it used to be. And Mob is slowly starting to be recognized by the greater community, especially shout out to Michael Mann. So we have Green Tide, only 3 players, always very niche right there, right? A lot of models to shovel around, but we are going to be covering a Green Tide list today. We're going to be showing a bunch of War Horde, talking about a bunch of War Horde players that did well with the performance of X and 1. We're going to be talking about some Mob just a little wee bit, and some Boyz. So shout out to everybody who did good. And of course, let's get into some Warbosses that I wanted to shout out with successful WAAAGHs. So we have Joseph with a 4-on-1 War Horde list. This list had 3 kill rigs, shock attack guns, and Luda's unit. Yes, in a War Horde list, right? Because you still get the rerolls of hits, so just don't get a choice of pressing the button, of course. A Gazgul Thraka, but this list had triple Beastboss. Beastbosses on foot to go along those kill rigs. We had Connor Hogan with a 4-on-1 War Horde list. This also had triple Beastbosses, a Zagra and War Horde. Battle Wagon, some Burner Boys SWAT knob action here. So instead of bringing in the flash kits, he brought some Burner Boys. So I love to see that. We had Ross James going 4-on-1 with War Horde. He had his out as well. Gazgul, but instead he brought multiple units of 20-man Boys, but not only Boys, he brought Snagga Boys, and then he brought wagons as well. So we've talked about it, but yes, bringing 20-man units of Beast Snagga Boys is also viable and coming into play. And then last but certainly not least, we have Aaron Cotton, who had 4-on-1 with his Boyz list. He too brought kill rigs in his Boyz list. This is 2 Beastbosses, 2 big 10-man units of knobs, a Zagra, and then a couple trucks to go alongside that. So shout out to these successful Warbosses for the war. And with that being said, let's talk about our first list with the Mob. So we have Jofim, I think Manse Vidi. Sorry, his name was actually Joe. I messed the name up. All right. His name was Joseph, and then he was at this event called Manse Veni. Sorry, I think it's in Finland or some name that I really butchered, so I apologize. So I pull it up here on screen. This was a smaller. Actually, now I want to be curious. You guys are going to watch with me. It is Finland. Haha. Okay, remember. So it's Finland. Shout out to you guys when you're at an event. So we have John here. He had a Mob list. So of course we're gonna. We did have Michael Mann going 6-2 with his Mob list from WCW, but we're going to do that on a different day, and I'll talk about that more later. But here we have a different archetype of Mob. He did bring, in fact, Gazgul Thraka. So I know you guys, if you're new here, you haven't seen too much. Gazgul can, in fact, work in Mob. We have a Big Mech. You know, he's the new tech piece. He's been shining more and more, finding his way on lists. People are really starting to make him work, taking advantage of ability to move through enemy models. Seems to be a really cool deal. He did stick Smokey Gubbins on here. He also does give the Boyz and whatever units he's leading the ability to press the button, right? If you force that button, I'm telling you, you're going to kill like 5 Boyz when you roll. It's really kind of funny / annoying, but just let it roll, and any of those buffs works for Boyz. So it's kind of cool on that. He has 3 trusty Ludas, shock attack guns, excuse me. 1 of those with the Get Funded goggles, 1 basic mech, and 1 war boss. He has a big brick of 20 Boyz. I'm assuming that's where the big mech goes. That's where the war boss goes. He has 4 independent and small units of Gretchen, 1 unit of commandos, 3 big bricks of Ludas, each of them with 2 custom Mega Blasters, 2 bodyguards for Gazgul Thraka, equipped with a kill saw and a power claw for that diverse profile choice, a Stormboy unit, a battle wagon, a Gorkanaut, and a truck. Yes, absolutely. Now, there's a few options people could take here. Of course, you can always and should always consider putting one of your Luda units into reserve. You have the truck to act as kind of like a mobile bunker for your Luda, and then you can actually disembark from the mech, give them +1 to hit to the guys that are still embarked in it. Put one of your Ludas into reserve, and then you can even decide to put one of your Ludas in your Gorkanaut. I think a lot of the time people forget that your Gorkanaut is an offensive transport, right? It has the capability to position units for further activations in the game, or just keep them safe, knowing that it would take quite a bit to actually pop that easily, right? If you're positioning the Gork defensively because you're not ready for him to go, you know, they're not going to pop they're not going to get to the Ludas easily with just 1 unit, let's say, coming down and getting you know, uppy downy line of sight and popping a truck. Can't do that to your Gork. So your Gork can act as a safe positioning tool for Ludas, as well as putting one in reserve. Can't put them all in reserve because then you might lack the tools to actually deal with people's pressure early, or you might lose board control positioning, so you can actually bring stuff in reserve. You know, these are big units, guys, so just keep in mind that take advantage of all your transport and your transport capability. I think Ork players take for granted our transport capabilities here, because a lot of factions wish they had something like Orks do with Titanic models that can transport and stuff like that, right? So let's go over his path to victory with this Dread Mob. So right off the bat, he's going into Chaos Space Marines with Pack Bound Zealot. You know, Chaos Space Marines with the Pack Bound have great offensive output, but they are a little squishy, right? We have a lot of looters on this list. So we have Cypher. One thing to keep in mind, Cypher gives that like additional AP debuff, so people call it Vect. So he pretty much, it's making you spend additional CP if you're within his aura range. This is more effective against War Horde. The fact that you're playing Dread Mob means you're activating your strats outside of his range the majority of the time. That's nice for us. We have a Chaos Lord, another Chaos Lord and Terminator armor, another Chaos Lord and Terminator and Master of Execution. I have a feeling here we're going to see a lot of Terminators, huh? Cultist, Legionnaires, another unit of Legionnaires, a unit of 5 Terminators, a 10-man unit of Chosen, 2 individual Obliterators. They do have that threatening indirect, so we keep that in mind. And then a unit of Bikers, followed by a Forge Fiend, a Hellbrew, and then 2 individual Rhinos. Like I was saying when I started, these guys are very devastating offensively. Yet keep in mind, we're talking about a unit that has 30 Ludas, and you do have the units of commandos to keep these guys back. None of these units, from my understanding or awareness, do any kind of infiltration. So you do get kind of the board control on there, so you can get line of fire on there. They are going to have to position them, that kind of exploit themselves to pop a wagon, to pop a Gork. Which means once your guys are out, they can start kind of throwing back that Daka down range. So I don't see this being necessarily a hard matchup for Dread Mob, because you're able to pick up almost everything on his list with that. Mind you, I'm pretty sure, 99% sure, Pack Bound Zealot don't have Armor of Contempt, but they do have crazy devastating damage output. So if you don't position your Grotz position, you know, screen yourself well, if you give any of these units up, if your Ludas do get exposed early, they're getting absolutely deleted. Absolutely. Pack Bound Zealot is devastating damage. 61-point win there. Sorry, excuse me, 66-point win. So it was actually his lowest scoring game, right? Because I'm pretty sure he was really hesitant to kind of get in range of all these activations and die too quickly, because that's one of the armies that's like, no, I got all the volume and activations to kill you as much as I want. So he made sure not to feed himself there, just to score just enough to kill. Got to play the long-term game. That's one thing about Dread Mob, guys. You can play the long game with Dread Mob and kind of play at a slower pace. Kind of just one-shot people all the time. Next, we go into his second matchup, where he goes into Ultramarines, the Vanguard Space Marines. Got to be familiar with these guys, right? Got to be familiar. We know that these are getting more and more popular. Vanguard is niche to play, very easy to mess up. And Orks kind of, you know, don't hate to see Vanguards, because you're like, well, I'm just going to run up at you, unless it's top. Then in that case, that guy's getting away from you and just shooing you off the table. So we have Captain Sicarius, followed by Manius Calgar, the nice, bane of everyone's existence for his 4 feel no pain bodyguards activations here from these Victrix Honor Guard. You let one of these guys die and it pops up the 4 feel no pain for him. So then you start using him as a tanky juggernaut that runs and does damage. He can allow you to fall back, shoot, I believe, in charge. You have Rebute Gilliman for his free strip, CP, and he's cheap now for 25. Not cheap, but cheap enough. Uriel Ventress, Apothecary Biologus with Blade Driven Jeep, Lieutenant with Combi Bolter. Then we have a 5-man unit of assault officers, a big brick of Centurion Devastators. These guys are absolutely devastating. These guys are no doubt one-shotting your battle wagon. They can come off the battlefield edge, give themselves additional AP, and I think +1 to hit as well. You do get saves. What up, Jim Jones? Yeah, you get a 5-up. Whoa, thanks for the green shirt. Yeah, I love green's best. But these guys can absolutely hammer a battle wagon quite reliably off people. There is a stream game where I think it was Michael Mann himself with his Bully Boys list. He let his guys sit out in the open. His battle wagon was exposed. These guys came off the battlefield edge, picked him up quite reliably. He was like, oh, I should definitely not have done that. Let him get that line of sight so easily. Then he has an Eradicator unit to go alongside that, Infiltrators, Scouts, 2 of those units of Scouts, and then 2 Suppressor Squads. So Suppressor Squads are funny because they give your unit -1 to hit, as well as their 3-man units, their jetpack, very much for scoring. But when they do get to go off, they are debuffing you. It does work, I believe, until the next phase, until the next turn, I believe. Or something when I read it last time. It's been a while. And so it does affect your melee as well. It's not simply a -1 to shooting. You would think because of suppression, it would be only shooting. Nope. It counts for -1 to hit in combat too. I read it not too long ago. It's been a while, but long ago as in within like a year. So yeah, this list definitely super, toolsy. Definitely can get the initiative on you as an Ork player. You do appreciate the fact that you have the ability to shoot back at these guys because they have reactionary moves and they have debuffs as well. Easier said than done. This is one of those things where having the mission and stuff, giving more context would be a better way to lay that out. Just know that that list is definitely devastating. You pop the Gork, pop the wagon, but you do have tools to really pick up everything else in response. It does take a very high-level player to pull that kind of Vanguard attachment kind of list off. So we can see here, he got an 82-point win there. Then we go into his third matchup, which is a Gene Stealer Cultist, host of Ascension. Haha, we like that, right? So Gene Stealers making their way on the market, boys. Time to get some loot, right? Start beating them boys up, taking the loot from these guys. They're the little buggy boys, which means become familiar with them to a certain degree. If you're attending like a GT, I would say. So we have Benefits. Speaking of get familiar with, I don't know who the heck this guy is. Primus, another Primus, and then a Reductus Saboteur, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units of Hand Flamer Acolyte hybrids, followed by 1, 2, 3 big 20-man units of Neophyte hybrid bricks, a Goliath truck, followed by 3 5-man units of Aberrants. These guys are respectively punchy, respectively durable with their feel no pains. They don't really get good armor saves, so our AP actually does come into play. If these guys are on an objective, Ludas are still absolutely erasing them without you worrying about it. If they're not an objective, they do have a good chance to kind of just withhold that damage. Also, if you put like a Gork into them, which they tend to have, you're obviously picking them up with your 6 damage crumps. We do have 2 Achilles Ridge Runners. These guys give like additional AP, I believe, when they pick a target to shoot. Gene Stealers aren't just really good at popping wagons and corks at range. So they do have to kind of let you interact and start chewing through stuff. And then 3 units of Pure Strain Gene Stealers. This is like the initiative where they kind of want to run you down. They don't have the Pure Strain, it looks like, right? They don't have the Pure Strain, so they're not going to really devastate you. They are going to try to pin you in, though, right? And then when you pick these Gene Stealer, Pure Strain Gene Stealers up, they're going to respawn. So you're going to have to be aware of that. But, picking them up, you have commandos are keeping them off you. So, like I said, your battle wagons can go bully. If you are going to Gene Stealers and they don't have the innate kind of firepower that I'm not really seeing on this list, they do have, some rock grinders, and they do have, I think there's like the Cutter driller kind of las cannon kind of dudes, but not really popular where they're at now. So they're not necessarily good at destroying wagons and gorks in a timely manner. So kind of be aggressive with them. And definitely beat the crap out of them, because you have to push them off you so that when they come back to life on the table, they're not in the mid table. It takes them a while to get kind of back there. Other than that, Gene Stealers are making their way up. So shout out to them. Them game 4, we have wave 4. We have hold on. Go back to that. We were gonna say about Gene Stealers. My boy Jank. What's up, Jank? One of the mods. He says Beneficious attaches to the battle line to give their ranged weapons lethal. It also has a psychic cannon for those own ranged attacks. Can't attach to the Primus icon of the Magus. All right, thanks for that. I appreciate it. Shout out to the mod. Shout out to the mods. So that's what he does. Thanks, because I didn't know that. All right, so game 4, we go into the Eldari battle host. I always say that Eldari, for the most part, aren't like a hard matchup for Orks, or a bad matchup, right? Not easy, bad. So we have the Artarg Wayleaper with the Phoenix. You're back up. Avatar of Cain, Death Jester with Fate Messages, and then a Farseer. We have 2 units of Corsair Void Reapers. Yeah, Reavers. Sorry, excuse me. Guardian Defender, nice basic battle line unit. 2 units of 3 Shroud Runners. 1 Striking Scorpion unit. 2 small swooping hawk units, followed by 2 Warwalkers, and then a big old dart Wraith Knight, big old fat Wraith Knight. Wraith Knights don't really seem to be where it's at right now, right? Don't really seem to be where it's at. And when you have big shells for bigger gets, and you really have just one target you care about, it does help with these Warwalkers a little, because they do have, like, I think an innate -1 to wound if you're greater strength than them, and they'll heal like 9 or 10 or so they're not that easy to kill, but we have the volume to kind of get through stuff like that. Other than that, how does Dreadmom necessarily do into it? It's one of those things that they don't really kill a 20-man unit of Boyz too easily in activation. They do have to put certain Bright Lances and this Wraith Knight into the battle wagon to pop it. But if you can prolong that, try to get the initiative on the Wraith Knight, or even use your wagon as, bait. Let him come out. He goes for your wagon. You respond with your Gork and your Ludas. And then in the response, your big mech could run up the table with his boys, run through screens, really get stuck in their deployment, push them back. So yeah, he's definitely playing with flavor, is a good way to put it, right? He's playing with flavor. But people can win with flavor, man. People can win with flavor. Then we go into this 5th game, where we have a plague company of Death God. So of course the Orks bullies, right? We know that for the most part, Death Guard are giving us a little run for our money sometimes. So we have, can you guys see that on screen, or is that too far? There we go, zoomed in. We have a Typhus, Biologic Putrefier, Foul Blightspawn, and then 2 Malignant Plague Casters. So it looks like he's going to first and lethal 5+ criticals here. So he has 2 10-man units of Plague Marines, followed by 1 10-man unit of Cultists, a 6-man unit of Death, followed by a 3-man unit of Death Shroud, 2 floated bloat drones with Plague Spitters, a Mephitic Blight Hauler, 2 Rhinos, a Nurgling, 2 Brigands, and a Carnivore. I don't think these are bad allies necessarily. They do supplement some of the weaknesses that Death Guard has for their, lack of long-range shooting and slow positioning. But these don't really help us. Sorry, these tools don't help them against us. We would hate to see more Terminators, for example, right? These are pretty solid, though. They're pretty solid because Brigands have good volume. They have their melted lance guns, so they can help with wagons if they do. I'm just saying we would hate to see even more Death Guard type units. Like in our case as Orks, some people could argue that you would dislike seeing more Tarion more, for example, right? Because we know we can deal with Carnivores and Brigands. We don't necessarily hate the, night matchup all the time, depending on how you design your list, of course, right? This is a general statement. Therefore, I've found personally that I do have a little bit more difficulty if I'm dealing with Death Guard that have even more redundancy in Death Guard tools. Not necessarily sure if it's Morty, right? Not necessarily sure if my answer is Morty here. But that being said, that's how you kind of would try to work around it if you could, because you know, he doesn't also have a bunch of Nurglings, right? And we're not trying to get stuck into them and combat them, really. We're trying to duke it out and shoot them, which is what they're weak at. Yet what they're trying to counter us with our strength against them right now is War Dog Brigands, which we have the tools to deal with them because we're playing Dread Mob. So that doesn't play against us as we're playing Dread Mob, which is why people look at Dread Mob and they go, man, we don't have to deal with, you know, the Vector, or we don't have to deal with Death Guard necessarily as much Contagion Aura or the stacking -2 to hit, trying to run into their defensive buffs. Of course, you can get those from the Dress Shroud because it doesn't look like he also doesn't have the. Oh wait, no, the Bladecaster is that, right? Oh, okay. Plaguecaster is for, yeah. So one thing is, yes, that's true about Gem Jones with the Plaguecaster. He does roll mortal wounds. But what I was trying to point out is that they don't have the Terminator Sorcerer because he reduces Terminators for those Death Shroud, which can kind of stack that durability on there. So how looking at this list, even though Death Guard is a hard matchup for that, that's where you find some of the holes and weaknesses in that, right? Ludus, Plague Marines normally with their brick of fight first, critical 5+s, it does get into Boyz. It does get into all these different orc units that want to run up and punch them. But in response, something like Ludas don't really care about this. Even if you're -1 to hit them, hey, I'm re-rolling, whatever. And then my shock attack gun is normally my real value unit. So it's just chewing straight through you. -4 AP. One of them's ignoring cover. And it's blast. You're just getting wrecked. So, oh, and don't forget about Typhus. Typhus is probably who's sticking with that 6-man unit. He throws out mortal wounds as well. He's very good high value. But good shout out by that for being able to take out Death Guard as the final unit with a 77-point win with his Dread Mob list. Of course, you do love the fact that you have a Gorkanaut in that kind of matchup because then you can bully the Baby Knights, you can bully the Death Shrouds and hit them with the Strength 6 punch. You do love the Battle Wagon for its ability to throw those 20 boys up the table right away and pressure and flip a primary objective. So shout out to you for taking over Dread Mob and taking them to an undefeated 5-0. Whoa! For the Dread Mob and the Great WAAAGH. And we move on to the next orc player they want to cover, who also went undefeated, Hunter Spanks at the Ghost Town Showdown. But let me read real quick what the chat said. Did I miss anything? Yeah, the Plague Bastard, he does shoot. That is pretty dope because, you know, the Plague Bastard is the Rhino has the firing deck 2, so you pick like the 2 best weapons to shoot out of it. Did a triple kill rig? Did the triple kill rig list get covered yet? I don't know. Do we have a triple kill risk? I think the triple kill rigs did 4-1. They didn't get 5-0. This guy had double rigs though, so we're covering that right now. They said they can make kill rig the only way to play the game's orcs. I'll never purchase one. And you know what? That's funny. So shout out to you, Matt, because you're bringing this up. So Matt Kirkness is saying, I don't care how good kill rigs are. I'm not doing them. They're the way of the meta. I will tell you. That's the point of this channel. You don't have to play kill rigs to have success in the meta. Now, does playing them give you a little bit of a way to play them? Because as you can see with this, there are multiple orc players that did use kill rigs and have success. Yes, but then in the same slide, you can see multiple orc players that didn't use kill rigs and had success. So you don't need to use kill rigs to run the meta. That being said, Happy Crumper and I are having a video collab on Saturday where it's supposed to be a debate about the value or the truth behind kill rigs, is all I'll say. So that being said, just take the position that I don't think that they necessarily are auto tanks or have to be taken. But it's good that you bring that up because I think people have the wrong idea for that, right? The Joseph Hunter's Joseph's list says triple kill rigs. We don't have Joseph. We're covering Hunter. Oh, hello. So let's get back to Mr. Hunter. We have 2 beast bosses. One will follow me, lads. 1 boss Snikra, a guy's go Thraka. 2 war bosses. 2 10-man units of beast snagger boys. 2 10-man units of basic boys. 1 small unit of Gretchen. 2 kill rigs. Let me pull this up. 2 kill rigs, a 10-man unit of knobs, 5 mega knobs to go alongside Gaz, which is pretty dang wild, right? Because most of the time people don't pay for that. I mean, even when I talk about it and I say, hey, I don't think you should bring Gaz with the big breaker unit of mega knobs. I've told you that. My videos say that. I've been consistent with that. My boy said, I don't care what you say, but I'm bringing it. which I'm here for it. That's what you should do as Ork players. Listen to what I say and then adjust to your own preference. A 10-man unit of Knives with Power Claws, 2 5-man units of Storm Boys, and then 2 trucks. So yeah, let me get rid of some of these slides because I have a little bit too many open real quick. Bam, bam. Let me get this. Here we go. All right. So let's show Mr. Hunter Spakes at the Ghost Town Showdown. So for his first game, let's go win path to victory. He has the Tyranids Invasion Fleet. Very, very reliable. So you know how we have War Horde? Tyranids have Invasion Fleet. So we have Hive Tyrant with Adaptive Biology. I believe that's a Feel No Pain. A Neural Tyrant, a Swarm Lord. This Neural Tyrant does make it so the Shadow of the Warp abilities and -1. That does matter when you're an Ork player because obviously we really, really care about our strats. 1 Gargoyle. Remember, gargoyles have the ability to shoot and then move. So a lot of the time they can flip an objective for the Tyranid player, which is really annoying as an Ork player because you're not really used to that happening to us for so cheap. For example, he'll come down from Deep Strike. He'll shoot at anything that he can. That allows his unit to now move, and then he'll move onto an objective after coming in from reserve, right? If he can. We have 2 units of Hormagaunts, a Biovore, 2 units of Exocrines, a Lictor, 3 individual Maliceptors, a Tyrannofex, and then a Zoanthrope. My goodness, right? You're looking at this and you're like, oh, at least me, right? I'm looking at this and I'm going, you got to chew through triple Maliceptors. And you know what you're really happy to have when you're looking to chew through triple Maliceptors? A Ghazghkull Thraka, a Beastboss on foot. You can't use both, I would say. And honestly, the Beastboss himself can't reliably punch away the Maliceptor. You do have to keep in mind that the Maliceptor will have access to a 5-up Feel No Pain because of the detachment stratagem that they do have to give something a 5-up Feel No Pain. But that's why you can, for the most part, say that this is what I'm using for Gaz. When you're playing into this type of Tyranid list, he is looking to kind of more castle up, shoot you away, throw a little small units around the field to score, from his Lictor to his Hormagaunts to his Biovore to his Gargoyles. He's looking to stand and hold kind of the middle in the castle formation. If you are running into the Maliceptors, they make you -1 to hit. They can be -1 to wound also. And then they have a 4-up invul, and they're still tough. So it does require you to put quick, aggressive pressure. Then not to mention that he has a Tyrannofex with a Rupture Cannon for the big flamer for Overwatch. So this is one of those matchups where you as an Ork player, you know what they have, and if you slow play it, then they're designed to slow play and chew you away, because Tyranids like to kind of focus you down, right? For example, this Zoanthrope unit with the Tyrant, the Neuro Tyrant's getting +1 to hit. He can shoot a couple las cannons at you, and then the Tyrannofex can chip you. The Exocrines would get rerolls to 1 to hits everything that shoots at you. So they kind of focus you down. That's why you can't really take your time. So get into them, position up early with your truck, your kill rigs, and then just get into him. Put your, kill rigs on. You're going to be happy for your word towers. You're going to be happy for additional lethals. You're going to be happy for Gaz, that big of Gaz that you have going up here. So shout out to you, and obviously you're going to be happy for those beast bosses. Love to see it. It comes off that you think, oh, just because I have the beast bosses and the boys that I'm super easy, well done. You have the tools to delete him, but you can't slow play it. If you're anticipating that, pre-anticipating like scared, then Tyranid can kill you. But for the most part, you're just going to shove all the beast bosses and kill rigs and Gaz down their throat. Love to see it. Then we move on to the second matchup, which is only a 43-point win, right? Only a 43-point win. So let's see what he was so preemptive to go against it. We see he was going against Astra Militarum, the meta bullies. So we have 1 unit of Tempestus squad. 3 units of Tempestus command squads, followed by a platoon command squad. 2 primary psychers. These guys give their unit that they're in like additional durability to shooting, I believe. I don't know, something like that. Then we have Ursula Creed and Iron Hand Strachan. Iron Hand Strachan is a respectable scouting melee combatant. Then we have a Catachan Jungle Fighter unit, Acadian shock unit, another Catachan Jungle Fighter unit, a big 20-man unit, most likely for our boy Iron Hand Strachan. And then 2 more Catachan Jungle Fire units. So he has 6 Catachan Jungle Fire units, if I counted right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 of them. So he has 6 Catachan units, one of them being a big brick. And then a 3 10-man units of Tempest Scion squads, followed by 2 5-man units of Tempest Scion squads. I don't know, I'm saying those names wrong. I own the army. I'm saying that wrong. Followed by 3 big bricks of Atalan Rough Rider horses, a Cyclops demolition vehicle, and then 3 units of 10 Tempestus Aquilons. My goodness, very respectable. Very respectable. Obviously, you can understand looking at this list, a bunch of guard that are looking to scout forward, get in your face, and then drop a bunch of jetpack units behind them, shooting you away and scoring very respectably. And also having these units of Rough Riders to run up and charge you. And then also, because they have the regimental keyword, they can get back onto the battlefield again. Very, very, very aggressive kind of army here, right? Very respectable. It's funny that we mentioned this because we're going to look at WCW list that has a kind of like similar archetype that you can see that the guard players are picking up. So if you're not familiar with this kind of design, mind you, these guys can get additional orders from Ursula Creed, additional defensive buffs from the Psychers, and then all the orders they get from their guys, and then they have Master Voxes so they can reach far away and give more orders out to other people. So if you're not familiar with this version of the guard and you're just familiar with the basic mechanized guard or combined arms guard, just know that this mass volume of guard infantry is on the table and come into play. It very much does matter if you can go first. Our boy doesn't. Hunter doesn't have commandos. He does have snake rat, but that's not enough to really stop the Catachans. They can stop them from scouting, but then a big 20-man unit of Catachans is fine to charge into him, pick him snake rat, pick him up off the table. Snake rat and Iron Hand go one-on-one pretty much, right? So he did have to play it slow, but he pulled this win off with the 43-point win. So I would love the context behind that. Of course, he does have the capability to kill stuff because he has a bunch of these 10-man units of boys and one-shot them back. I have a feeling he went first, though. A big feeling that he went first and that the mission helped him as well. It's very respectable. So then he moves on to Hunter's third game, because that was only a second game, boy. Getting that guard infantry spam game 1 and then a bunch of drop troopers, right? Then he goes into game 3. He's going into Thirster. As you can imagine, demons. So we have a Bloodthirster with the King's Blade for more damage, right? Because otherwise he's not that scary. We have a Demon Prince of Chaos, followed by Karak. I don't know what that is. 2 units of Ren Masters of the Blood Throne. So these guys can give their units like +1 strength and I think +1 damage. Pretty dang cool. We have a Scarbrand. It's very scary for killing. I think he gives everyone around him, I think, additional attack or something. It's kind of funny. And then a Skull Taker. So very, very aggressive, corny army here. We have a unit of Bloodletters. They come off from reserves. I think Deep Striker reserves and get good charges off. I think it's on 3 dice or something, but they get some sort of buff to coming off the battlefield edge. 2 units of Blood Crushers. Keep in mind that demons have uppy downy, right, where they can pick their units up. Not to mention that they have advance and charge, but they also have coming in from 6 inches from you and charge against you. And then Blood Crushers, for Ork players to understand without going full into their data sheet, think of them as Squighog boys. They have a mount that hits well. They have a guy on top that hits well. But these guys, I think one of their profiles is damage 1. And then we have 2 units of Fleshhounds, really cheap for 70 points for just little bodies of guys that run up for 12 movement. A lot of these guys are going on the field first, taking up space, and then they're trying to drop in Blood Crushers. Just so happens that when you're going into beast bosses, you can just destroy those demons. And then you actually having kill rigs, so you can maybe shoot a little bit of these crushers away. Crushers are super respectable though, so you'll want to hold on to those transports and not get charged by those guys. But you're definitely going to appreciate Fight on Death as well. But we all know that War Horde, especially when you have guys there, just does really, really well until like a demon design list. So still 80 points, so it's not like he just walked them. Like I said, you have to be respectable, but yeah. Then he goes into his 4th game. You have We have Chaos. Wait, was that a force game? Yeah. Then he went to Demons again, which he called Bigger Are Us. Yeah, we're about to find out who's bigger, right? We have Velikor, a Keeper of Secrets. Actually, 3 Keepers of Secrets. And then Shalexi Hellbane, a Changeling, and the Mask of Slanesh. 1 Plague Bear, and then 3 Screamers. So I've heard of this. You know, it is very killy and it's fast. It's respectable, but it's not what, you know, they don't want to see Orks, Beastbosses, Gas, War Horde, triple 2 kill rigs standing on the other side of the table here, right? Even the fact that you can give additional strength to bring units up to different strength holds so they're wounding on 5s instead of 6s against, you know, greater demons, that matters too outside of the WAAAGH turn. So remember, it doesn't always happen to WAAAGH turn. It can. It can, because you're running against demons. You could just completely annihilate them. Not much depth there. Just remember to screen well, guys. Be respectable in that. And then his game 3, which I have a feeling it was Chaos Knights. So he has the dog spam, I think, right? So we have a dog stalker followed by 6 brigands, 6 carnivores. Bam, pretty vanilla. Everybody knows about this. If you're going to GT, just expect that you very much might have to play some version of dog spam. And that's could be that he was anticipating this because this wasn't a very large event at the Ghost Town Showdown. So you do kind of have an idea what people are playing. And you could have just realized I play against a lot of demons. I play against a lot of Chaos Knights. That's what these guys are going into. Therefore, I bring a big gas. That's why at the end of the day, the good part about Hunter's list is that even though most of us have these models, most of us has ran some similar archetype of this and easily can copy this, he put his twist of, I know my meta and my matchups that I need to do. I need a bigger unit with gas. I need him to get the full output, straight punch 2 people, keep Makari alive, have continuous momentum. I need only 2 kill rigs instead of 3. And he just met his meta correctly. That's all it really took, right? That's why knowing your meta, knowing what I advise and what the whole meta does generally as a whole is important, but also having your own context for your own skills and your own, you know, meta and what you're going into for tables and everything like that is what matters a lot. So shout out to Mr. Hunter Spanks because it looked like he read the meta well and he brought the Great WAAAGH. Much pride. So last but certainly not least, we're going to go over John Holbrook's WCW Green Tide. And he actually did send us some notes. So bear with me as I fumble around with some of these notes. I did, of course, pre-read them and get through them a little bit. So we'll try to make it nice and concise. So John Holbrook had been premiered on the channel before because he did go undefeated 6-0 to qualify for this event. And he also took Green Tide back then. So you can check that out for an alternative version of Green Tide if you're not into this one. But he decided to go for even more bodies than his other list that he had before. So in that case, he brought a Big Mech, which, yes, in fact, is a new addition to his list. While Snickrat, who's another new addition to his list instead of a commando. We have 3 units of Pain Boys, 1 with Bloodthirsty Belligerents, followed by 3 Warbosses, and then a Weird Boy who was the Warlord with the enhancement for Cunning but Brutal. He chose to opt for all 6 20-man units of Boys, 2 minimum size unit of Gretchen, 1 unit of Commandos, and then 2 5-man units of Storm Boys. John pretty much learned from his last outing with Green Tide and just in general from all his game with Green Tide is that the enemy and the opponents are going to take fixed. They are going to take fixed. And then, you know, all that really does is push him as an Ork player to go back to the meat and potatoes, the fundamental of Orks, what Orks do. And what Orks do is score points, trade body for points. We control attrition. That's the way of the game for us. That's why he just realized, hey, people are going to take fixed against me. My job is to flip the primary on them, continue to score my secondaries in my primary, make a higher max cap capacity of points I will be scoring, and limit my opponents, pull out the win that way. So a lot of the time, he did end up using these games. They ended up being close games, and he did just end up flipping them like that. So if you're thinking about Green Tide and you go, well, they're going to take fix, they're going to take assassinate, they're going to take call the horde. Very true. And plan for it, right? Plan for the worst and hope for the best. Plan for it, play against it, and have your set plan that scoring comes first. If you're playing Green Tide and you're wondering how Green Tide works, Green Tide is the essence of Orks because it's not about killing. It's about winning on the points. And that's really how Orks have always worked for several editions, even though, of course, we have our ways to kill, right? Of course. But if you understand that part of Orks, then you can play any version of Orks. So let's look at his path to victory. And I do have, like I said, his he had notes that he sent over to me. I'll try to not read just straight up everything verbatim unless you guys really want me to, so it doesn't get too jabbery. But let's look at John Holbrook's path to victory. So he did end up going 5-3. He did in the 53rd. He did not get best performing Orks, even though he did start out hot. As you can see, he was 3-0, and then at the end of day 2, he ended up taking his first loss. So he was out in front of the pack of all the other Orks. We do have the best performing Orks of Michael Mann. He did go 6-2. We are going to cover him. He's going to be on the channel on Friday. But I really, really like John Holbrook's list, and I really, really appreciated him sending notes. So that's why we're going into it. So with that being said, let's look at his first game. With his first game, and I do have notes for this, but let's look at the list. He has a Tau Empire. It's a Commander Farsight, 3 Cold Star Battle Suits, followed by 3 Crisis Sunforged Battle Suits. No, sorry. That was wrong. 1 is a Sunforged, and 2 of them are Star Scythe. 2 Sunforged, 2 Star Scythe. Followed by 2 Ghost Keel, a Crew Pathfinder, 2 Riptide Battle Suits, and then 3 units of Stealth Battle Suits. Now, I do have the note. That way I don't have to make conjecture here. So keep in mind, it was... I can pull the mission up as well. So for the first mission, it was Layout 7. Cheeky little layout there. Followed by the Ritual with Stalwart and Hammer and Anvil. So he says, respectively, it was a good layout. It was a good layout as he could get with those matchups. So he said that's pretty much the best he could do with going into Tau and for Dark Angels, because they both had to deal with this. In the Tau game, he didn't have the ability to shoot me. Like, he didn't have the ability to shoot him fully well to his 120 of Boyz until he shoved all the 120 Boyz up the table for the WAAAGH. So the burst cannon for sustained 2 strat was insane, and that would make he would be take 40 saves at a time for his Boyz. Luckily, it was just a momentum thing, and he realized that he just had to kind of shove forward and run him down as early as possible. Funnily enough, that's kind of the way for Green Tide as a whole, right? But really, with going into Tau, when people ask what do you do with Tau, what you do with Tau is immediately pressure them and run them off the table, because the later you get into the game, the worse it gets. And he was taking 40 saves at a time once he started getting into it because of sustained 2 strats. But he was able to get the position and go first. So he didn't have the ability to shoot him enough before he was able to shove all the Boyz down his face. Then, like I said, for his next mission, he went into Dark Angels, which we have a Gladius Dark Angels list. He has Azrael, Lionel Johnson, Apothecary of Biologists, Intercessors, 3 5-man units of Deathwing Knights, Eradicators, 10-man units of Hellblasters, 5 Infiltrators, 5, and then 2 5 units of Scouts. He said round 2 against Dark Angels was a good matchup on any board. They don't really have the outputs to deal with his Boyz. He will outscore them on primary every single time. This game showed me that Green Tide might suck for actually scoring points, though. Dude focused down on scoring units early, and secondary units became a pain as I needed Boyz to shoot. I needed Boyz to charge stuff, not to stand in place and press buttons. Now, that's something that I really found as a big deal when I was looking at Green Tide, especially after all the changes with Nexus, which our ability to not stand and do cleanse reliably multiple turns, right? Another army that was able to take advantage of this with me was when Death Guard was playing with Plague Burst Crawlers, and they could say, well, I'm going to indirect fire your Storm Boyz, I'm going to indirect fire some of your Gretchen, I'm going to indirect fire whatever you're going to use to score. And that is a big problem when the enemy can actually take that away from you. And that's something that he had to deal with. He said one thing he wanted to keep in mind that he put this notes. Let's see. I'll read his note that he put here for later. But in short, this was an easy matchup for round 1 and 2. Not easy matchup, sorry, round 2. But for round 2, he said that it was a favorable matchup on any mission. He wants to stand there with Terminator, simply not enough C or enough output to kill them. So we move on to day 2. So day 2, he goes into, I have the mission here. Day 2 is layout 2. The first mission, so mission on game 3, is Scorched Earth, Inspired Leader on the Crucible of Battle. So we have, it was the corner style deployments. He said these were tough games. So right away on game 2, things have switched for him. Game in, first day wasn't that bad. Day 2 got a little bit more rough right off the bat. So third game was into, and of course, chat, I'm going to interact with you guys in a second. I'll stop in probably after the first 4 listen and see what you guys have to say. So for his Eldar matchup, he had Avatar Came, the Vizark, Yavrin, Artark, and a Farseer. A Guardian Defender, 5-man unit of Reapers, 5-man unit of Striking Scorpions, 2 units of 5 Swooping Hawks, a Trope, Warp Spiders, and then triple Fire Prisms, followed by a Viper. So he said, sorry, I should have showed you guys that, but I went through it too fast. Triple Vipers, bunch of your characters, the Avatar. But as for his notes, what he said is normally Eldar is a good matchup, but he had triple Fire Prism. So let me show you the triple Fire Prism real quick, because I did pull that out, because I haven't seen one of them boys in a little minute. This is the beginning of the edition. So the movement 14, T9, 3 up armor save, 12 wounds. They do have a 60-inch 2d6 blast, strength 6 -1 2 damage cannon. Hate to see it, because then your pain boys are not getting the value they want to really survive this. And then they have shuriken cannons for sustain, and then some catapults. They do have linked fire for at least their lance, where they don't have to see. As long as one person can see, they can all can see. And then they can select to re-roll a hit and a wound and stuff like that. But he had 3 of those guys for the volume. So yeah, typically, like I've said a bunch of times with Eldar as a whole, is they don't really have the volume to deal with orcs or the activations like quickly enough, and then we kind of overrun them even with hurt units. In this case, Fire Prism are just chewing away boys very, very quickly. And the layout really let him do that, is what he's saying. So he got to shoot. He said he got to go first, as in John got to go first, which was really huge for his staging. He thinks he actually could have lost if he went second, because the guy could just shoot him from his deployment zone. So the game was back and forth, and then he killed some clowns and some clown bricks during the wall. He said he's not really sure how that happened. He said he killed 2 clowns, and then he got to keep falling back and forth and trying to kill boys, but ultimately he pulled it off. So game 4, he got a clutch by Weird Boy by charging his home field objective and put him on 0 primary, swarmed hostile objective, and killed 3 turns. So it just swept the points on them, and I think that's pretty awesome. So really, really important. Like I always like to say, you can't count on luck, but luck counts, because he got that home field charge off with the Weird Boys and swung the primary there for his 3rd game into Eldar. So things are already getting rough here, because he already, showed and kind of gave his hand that, hey man, honestly, shooting armies on this layout, this deployment was rough for me, and I felt it in the first matchup. Wasn't even a necessarily really threatening long range shooting army. Meaning going into his 4th game, going into Bjorn. I fixed myself. Don't jump on me, European friends. Bjorn. He ended up going into Astra Militarum. So there you go. For day 2, mission 4, he had to go into guard, and on the worst mission possible. So if you didn't see my WCW video, I said when I was looking at John, and John was the person I was thinking might go the furthest with orcs, either him or Michael Mann, ended up, being close. And I said, well, the real issue here is that most armies can't deal with John, but there is one, and it is guard. And the worst thing would be if you had to deal with it on Purge the Foe. Well, guess what? Day 2, mission 4 is Purge the Foe, Smoke and Mirrors, Tipping Point. Boom. So John had to go into guard on Purge the Foe. Pretty rough. So he and on that list made layout 2. So he was getting shot, guys. He was getting shot a lot. Our boy was getting shot. So let's look at the list real quick. It's Gaunt Ghost, Solo Leontis, followed by a Militime Tempestus Command Squad, a Platoon Command Squad, Sly Marbo, Tank Commander. 2 units of Catachans, followed by Infantry, 1 Infantry Squad, 2 individual Chimeras, a Hellhound, a Lehman Russ, a unit of Regimental Attaches, a Rogodorn, Scout Sentinels, a unit of Aquilons, and then a big unit of Scions. So as for his notes, he said round 4 was felt pretty unwillable to him. He said he knew that if he was undefeated at this point, he would have to be a little bit more lucky to win his pod because he knew it was Purge the Foe. And it's an enemy of Green Tide. We know as Ork players as a whole, guys, we don't necessarily like Purge the Foe. One of our harder missions, that's what it's designed for. Xenos to a certain extent, or anti small units. So he paired against our boy Bjorn from Sweden, who only lost like one game in a long time. He's been doing very well. So pretty much he tried to make a big long bomb charge, didn't get it, ended up failing that one, getting shot off the table. No shame in that. We understand if you're playing into guard and, especially on layout 2, you're probably going to get shot up. So 50 point there. He takes his first loss. So here he's finally lost. He's dropped into a different bracket. He didn't end up, winning there, but that's all right. So now he moves on to the next, hard set of games. So now we move into day 3, which is layout 4, and then the mission 5 will be Burden of Trust, Prepared Position, Search and Destroy, for layout 4. So let's see what his game 5 will be, where he has Astra Minotaur again. So let's take a look at this next guard list that he had to deal with again. Remember, guys, the guard was super represented at this event, and because Mr. John has won the first 3 games, he's already in the pool with the big boys right off the bat. So yes, Gaunt's Ghost again, Lord Sorleantis, Platoon Command Squad, Double Tank Commanders, and Ursula Creed. 2 units of Catachans, and then an infantry squad, 2 Chimeras, a big brick of Adelan Rough Riders, 2 Rogaldorns, 2 Scout Sentinels, 1 Aquilon, and then 2 5-man units of Tempestus Scions. And then as for his notes, he said, round 5, I got paired into guard again, and he positioned pretty bad on round 1. He just had to kill 1 unit, which is to put me on 0. So I positioned a little better for round 3 and slammed into him with a round 3 WAAAGH. He ended up killing 2 Dorns. He killed 2 Dorns, as in John killed 2 Dorns. That's pretty awesome. And 3 scoring units, which flipped the game on his head. I was able to take his home field at that point. Round 4, he wasn't able to score any points, but he almost lost on turn 1. Wait. Oh, actually, John is the one who killed position poorly pretty bad. That's why. So he said because John positioned himself poorly turn 1, he felt like he was in danger since the beginning, but he was able to flip the game after round 3 by making a nice big charge and positioning with an aggressive wall round 3. Nice job there, John, because no one likes to deal with guard, and trying to recover a game when you're getting shot is rough. So he got that with a 78-point win for round 5. Then we move into round 6, which is still layout 4, and it's Terraform, Stalwart, and Crucible of Battle. So let's move into his 6th matchup, which was Space Marines, Vanguard, Spearhead. So as for this one, he had a lieutenant with Combi Bolter, Combi Whopper, Manius Calbar, Urnio Fentress, Ballistus Dreadnought, Bladeguard Veteran Squad, Big Brick of Centurion Devastators, Company of Heroes, nice durable boys right there, Desolation Squad, Eradicator Squad, another Eradicator Squad, Inceptors, Incursors, Infiltrators, Invaders, a unit of Scouts, and a Storm Strike Speeder. One thing I want to say is we haven't seen a Desolation Squad in a hot minute. It is only a 5-man unit, but we haven't seen him in a hot minute. So this guy's coming up with something real nutty, real cheeky out here because no one really knows what's going on. Oh, sorry, guys. I did it to you again. Right here where he brought the Incursors, 3-man Eradicators, 5-man Desolation Squad, big Centurion brick. So let's take a look at what John's notes are here. So for this one, it was round 6. He went against Vanguard Marines, which isn't the best matchup. He got to go first on Terraform. Unlucky for John. He said if he got to go first, it would have really messed up the guy's score. He made a huge mistake of charging Calgar and Blade Guard into a Warboss squad. Killed like twin boys, but then when he fought back, he almost killed the whole unit. Tied everything up except for Centurions on the wall turn, and just the activation locked him. The Centurions blew up a unit of boys every turn, but it just wasn't fast enough for him to outscore him. So the pretty much a lot of the time, the Vanguard Space Marine player would, like we talked about with Calgar, where he can run, fall back and charge, or he can just be aggressive and just getting stuck in combat because he's really good at fighting with twin linked. That being said, the guy just did his basic meat and potato strategy of I'm going to shoot you with these units, I'm going to charge you with Calgar and continue momentum going forward with this guys. In this case, he charged it to a big just boy mob and got stuck in. The boys in response just really crumped them. So I love to see it. So at that point, John got an 80 point win here. So he's 5-1 after the first 3 days. So my boy is hot right now. 5-1 after the first 3 days. Love to see it. But then, as you can see on screen, he's in for a rough day 4, with all due respect, but it happens. So right now he's in the point where he has to fight with the other big dogs who got knocked down into the brackets, because he's doing really well, right? If this is a 6-round event, he's 5-1. So now he's fighting with the other 5-1 type levels. At World, he's 5-1 after day 3. So he's fighting with the monsters here. And one of the first monsters he has to get with is Mr. Wesley St. Hines. So shout out to Wesley, because he played against one of my homies with Mr. Kevin, and Kevin was talking to me about this list for weeks before WCW and how I felt about it, because how atrocious and obnoxious it was. Kevin lost to this unit Bailey by like a couple points, right? This list is potent. Waaaghtaktiks has covered it, and Wesley has so much knowledge in this, and that's something that Mr. John pointed out as well. That Wesley is extremely knowledgeable in this army and this list. So real quick, let's go over it. It's called I have too many bodies. Just kidding, it's not called that. One thing here is that John said, I played against mass guard infantry, which outnumbered my 176 models by 80. So imagine you're on Ork playing Green Tide. You have a Green Tide of 176 bodies, and you go against a list that has even more bodies than you. Gosh, that would just be a bizarre feeling. So we have and it would be fun to see that on the table, right? So we have Acadian Command Squad, 2 Death Corps Marshals, a Guns Ghost, 3 units of Command Squads, Sly Marble, and then Ursula, 1 unit of Acadian Shock, followed by 1, 2, 3 units of Catachan, 2 big bricks of Death Corps of Krieg. These guys get field no pains and stuff, so they actually are harder to kill than other bricks of guards. Tempestus Scion Squad, 3 of those big bricks of those, and then followed by 3 bricks of Kazarkin, and then 3 bricks of Quillen Scions. So in all here, guys, a lot of the time is these guys are going forward with the scouting Catachans, followed by the Death Corps. These guys are coming back to life as well because they're regimental. And then keep in mind, you have multiple units of jump track units. So it's not just the Scions and the Aquilons, which are really popular, but he also has 30 Kazarkin that are coming down. So he's constantly just filling up the table and putting more and more bodies down, flipping primaries, scoring secondaries. You're not killing him fast enough, and he can actually kill you, especially as an Ork player. So that being said, let's see what Mr. John said. So John said his whole army is made up of screens and suicide bombing Scions with the ability to destroy 20 boys. So with ability to destroy boys so hard. Sorry, he wrote a bunch of swear words that it's not even funny. We both took forever to position our deployment because we know whoever went first would likely win. John ended up rolling 1. So Wesley stormed all the Catachans at me. He was never able to get a foothold. Then he brought all the Scions down and the Kazarkin down and started blowing them away. He felt like if he got first, then John could put all the commandos in front of him and then try to do him in reverse by dropping all of those boys into him with the Green Tide and then making everything kind of deep strike into his backfield, which sure, he might still get obliterated, but it would stop Wesley from also scoring. So that's typical what Orks do, right? But that being said, he ended up losing that one with a 35 points. So very, very rough one right there, which you can imagine, right? They just keep you back and blow you away. Wesley was going against everybody. Wesley was shaking up the meta with this funny list. Then we go into his last but certainly not least game. I said that already. I did not say that. On day 4, mission 7 It was layout 1, take and hold, raise banners, tipping point. Sorry, should have said that. Then we go on to game 8, which was layout 1, linchpin, raise banners, search and destroy. So here, make sure you guys can actually see. Yes, you can. We're going into Blood Angels Liberator Assault Group. So it was a Blood Angels captain, followed by Mephiston, Commander Dante, Lamartis, and then Lieutenant with combi weapon, a unit of assault intercessors, Impulsor, 2 units of assault intercessors with jump pack, 2 units of ballistas dreadnoughts, 1 10-man unit of death company with jump pack, infiltrator squad, 3 units of sanguinary guard, one of them being a big old fat brick. And then I'll just show you the units because these guys ended up being a problem. So we have the new sanguinary guard data sheet. If you haven't seen it, still 12-inch move jetpack boys with T4. They do have the 2 up armor save still with 3 wounds of pop. 4 up invuln. Real catcher here. They are -1 to hit when they're in combat. So they're -1 to hit for us boys. And then when they're being led by character, they're also -1 to wound. The big deal here is that this does not give the caveat of you must be a higher strength than them for -1 to wound, meaning the boys typically wounding these guys on 4s are now wounding these guys on 5s because you don't have to be greater, you just have to be the same as, meaning that they were really hard to deal with. Not to mention these guys fight. These guys crump. These guys get stuck in very respectably. They got respectable shooting pistols and everything, to say the least. So let's look at the notes real quick of what our boy John said about this. He said, Blood Angels, this 12 sanguinary guard, who are my new worst enemies as orcs. They're -1 to hit, 2 up armor save with armor of commitment, really hard. A lot of boys to kill even 1, which is exactly what happened. So he full shoved them at him on round 2. John didn't call a wall on round 2. He said, oops, big mistake. And he took a whole bunch of damage here. He said he had better target priority. He would have gone for the death company instead of the sanguinary guard. And that should have offset the output that the Blood Angel player had. That way he can actually score enough points and not die. So pretty much what John's saying here is target priority would help him control his rate of attrition. If he would have killed Death Company instead of Sanguinary Guard, he would have lost all those Death Company offensive output, which would have kept John in the game enough to swing the scoring. One thing that he did say here was that he killed like 4 Sanguinary Guard and 5 Death Company Marines with his rockets. So he said, take your rockets on your boys' units, peoples. He also said that the mission benefited the Blood Angels player because he had to always kind of be in threat of the Blood Angels positioning because where the primary objectives were. So it was pretty rough. So then John ended up taking a final loss there with 70 points, respectable 70 points. Scoring there, but ended up just not pulling out the W, and that's all good because you started off, you pulled the Icarus here, my boy John, right? Where you were going into day 4, 5-1, you can go glory, baby. You can go 7-1. You can be right up there, be gay man. What's up? Oh, I'm a big boy. And instead, you had really hard missions and matchups in that last day because you were playing against all the other monster contenders there at the end, and they just ended up being good matchups into your Green Tide, right? A lot of the time we talk about Green Tide's a stat check here. So the final thoughts from Mr. John was, let's see, he had this note right in the middle of it that he wrote that I had to skip over, and I'm going to mention now. So he said, this list doesn't have enough units in it. If he were to change it, I think he would run something that was more like Lucas Troller's WCTC list, where he has something like 80 boys and a bunch of little units and flash kits. He said getting screened was enormous, and it was really, really hard. It was a hard time to even get the rockets to shoot. Having more guns would have helped. What I talk about a lot of time with you boys, playing multiple phases of the game, having a combined arms aspect to your game is very, very important for you as an orc player. That's why I've been pushing Dread Mob. I've been pushing certain shooting units. It's not because I really, like to shoot. I actually don't. I just like to enforce the combined arms aspect, and it's barely beneficial, which is what John is, saying here as well, even in Green Tide. He said, in all those games, my opponents were smart enough to kill the Big Mech squad as quickly as possible because he can walk through screens. So that ability seems to be, So ability seems to be a workaround. So unless you don't take 3, it's not as useful. So he's saying even though the Big Mat ability is really awesome, the fact that the opponent could just narrow it down to that 1 means that it's not as useful. That being said, when we did see the Big Mac being used on other high level players, they brought 2. So they he did understand the redundancy in the other times we brought the Big Mac. So overall, John's last note. Fantastic weekend. Just missed out on Best of Faction. Shout out to Michael Mann, who caught up at the last 2 days for staying in it. Next time he'll swing into backer targets. Chillest event he's ever been to. Not a bad moment at all, or feel bad. And thank you very much for John for that. And like I said, shout out to Michael Mann. We're actually going to talk to him on Friday about his Dread Mob performance for 6 and 2. But give yourself a ton of credit, Mr. John, because you very much deserved where you were at and deserve all the respect. Sometimes the rankings don't reflect where you could have possibly ended up because, for example, you're 5-1 on day 3, and then you have super hard matchups at the end of day 4, right? So we recognize that. So all due respect, great job. And it's the rise of the green tide from Mr. John Holbrook and his green tide. So that's what I have to say about that. So everybody, the Orks had a fantastic weekend, a fantastic showing. Everybody should be quite excited because something that we always talk about here on the channel and that we've been proving time and time again is that, sure, we know the meat and potato of what Orks are good at. Beastbosses, War Horde, Crump. But there's other ways you can play, other units you can fit and slide into your list and have a diverse, designer archetype. There's so many ways that you can get stuck in. So check out a playlist, check out the videos, check out our painting competition. And thank you to everybody who's been around. Of course, there's always one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall because we not get TiVo.